Welcome to Maximal Being,
a podcast devoted to ditching fad diets and using real science to get you healthy and feeling great.
I'm Doc Mock, a GI and functional medicine doctor who harnesses the power of gut health to get you achieving your goals.
And I'm Jacky P, a well-informed layman who challenges the experts and asks the questions that you want.
Don't forget to hit the subscribe button or leave a comment.
And now, on to the show.
So, because of the time we're in, right, I definitely want to also take some time to talk about your studies surrounding the microbiome and COVID, right? It's timely. It's still here. I'm no expert, but I can't imagine COVID going anywhere anytime soon, right? So you mentioned the, forgive me, Bifidobacteria. Okay.
Yeah. Nailed it.
Boom. I'm a doctor now. Just kidding. So you mentioned the lack of Bifidobacteria. What are other, symptoms, or what can you say? You mentioned something how like someone's poop you can find out a lot about someone's COVID exposure in their poop, right? And since we've been talking about poop, let's keep the party going, right? Can you elaborate a little bit more about that in your studies with COVID?
So at the beginning of the pandemic, I started talking, we were supposed to have the Malibu Microbiome meeting because we joined a bunch of GI doctors, all of us that were doing fecal transplant. We joined up as a meeting to get the doctors to speak about, their experience with chronic UTI, psoriasis, alopecia areata, and to basically discuss, like, what are we all seeing so we can open that area of talking about fecal transplant. That's why I wrote the book, by the way, Let's Talk Shh. Because I want people to start talking about it. I want people to not be afraid of that. This is what gives us a clue as physicians. When you have a patient with Parkinson's has constipation before he develops Parkinson's, you have to start thinking, could the Parkinson's be gut related? Because the first symptom was constipation. So we have to pay attention to our poop. We have to pay attention to how do we fix our microbiome. So at the beginning of the pandemic, it was interesting because I realized the virus sits on ACE2 receptors. Where's your biggest area of ACE2 receptors? The bowels. So the first thing I did, and remember I had the meeting with the Malibu Microbiome meeting where Scott Jackson, who's at the National Institute of Standard, was on the meeting, and I sent him an article that found COVID in the stools in China. It was one of those early on papers because of the ACE2 receptors. So I said, COVID is in the stool. So we decided in my lab to look for it. And my obsession, obviously, with microbes and stools and fecal material, and I have a genetic sequencing lab. I told my scientists, I said, I bet you COVID is in the stools of everybody that has COVID. So he said, you're crazy. You're going to spend a lot of money for nothing. I said, well, challenge on. Let's do it. So the night before he calls me, he's like, you're probably going to find 20% of these patients have COVID in the stools. I go, okay. The next morning he calls me, he goes, 100% of the positive PCRs had COVID, SARS-CoV-2 in their stools. And he goes, but not only that, some of the asymptomatics had SARS-CoV-2 in their stools. So I followed these asymptomatics only to find out 2 months down the road, they developed COVID symptoms. So which brought the idea, does COVID start in the gut, incubate in the gut? You're having this bowel movement that's stinky. You're breathing it in as you're having that bowel movement, and then it goes into your nostrils and in your lungs. And therefore, could that be the mode of transmission? So that was the first thought that was a hypothesis, right? The second hypothesis, and of course, that brought on the CDC and everybody to look at the septic tanks, right? Why is it? And of course, looking at those strains, because testing the strains of your gut is very expensive. Like we do stool sequencing, looking for COVID, every sample, runs in the thousands. So because it's extremely time consuming, it's a scientist, library prep, everything. And reagents are super expensive. So what we did is we went from, we found SARS-CoV-2, which is a different pipeline, which is a RNA pipeline. So you have two pipelines in genetics. You have the DNA and the RNA. So we went the RNA pipeline zooming in on COVID. So in other words, we removed all the other viruses and we said, let's just focus and zoom in on COVID, on SARS-CoV-2. So we found SARS-CoV-2, we looked at all the strains and we discovered that 5 out of 8 at the time were different viruses. Now we're up to like thousands. I could tell you, the majority, I think about 80% of people have different viruses. So because that's what viruses do, they mutate. But then we took that population, we analyzed their stools and found SARS-CoV-2 and looked at their microbiome, their DNA and their bacteria, and then zoned in on the Bifidobacteria to see, because that was my interest. Like, it's such an important microbe, let's look at it. And then we looked at the Firmicutes and actually specifically Bacillobacterium protsnitzii. There's also other bugs that we found. And then the other obsession that happened was, my curiosity was, why in a same family, 2 people have COVID and 2 people don't have COVID? That was the first thing. Why is it that some people are surrounded by COVID and they don't catch it? And then you follow them and they don't catch it. So I started collecting stools from those families. And what I realized that, again, it was the Bifidobacteria that was popping up. People that were exposed and didn't get COVID had a higher Bifidobacteria, higher Bacillobacterium protsnitzii, which is another bug in the Firmicutes category, and a higher diversity than the people that had COVID, which then asks the question, well, why are those people in the same family? Why are some people having low Bifidobacteria and some people having high Bifidobacteria? They're eating the same foods, etc. Then you take the questions and you ask the questions and you find out, well, these people are taking antibiotics. So the people that were history of antibiotics, for example, history of chemotherapy, aging, overweight, all that affects your Bifidobacteria. And so that was the fascination and the findings of the whole Bifidobacteria.
That's amazing research. And thank you for being such an inquisitive scientist. I mean, I think it's important to ask these questions. I just wanted to clarify one point. It's that, for the listeners out there, you cannot catch COVID-19 by fecal oral transmission, similar to you can with a lot of other bugs like E. coli. So just to clarify that. It's also worth discussing GI symptoms in COVID-19. So I can remember back in February, right before the first cases of SARS-CoV-2 were reported here in the United States, seeing a woman who had just traveled on business to Wuhan. And she presented into the hospital with profoundly elevated liver function testing as well as diarrhea. And we never, ever figured out the exact cause of her symptoms. We tested her for everything under the sun. And so I think at that time it was possible that she could have had COVID-19. So, Dr. Hazan, what percentage of people with COVID-19 have GI symptoms, elevated liver testing, and does that at all predict their disease course?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of unknown, right? The same thing as fecal oral, we don't even know, right? I mean, it's so hard to prove that even, right? I think what I'm seeing is a lot of diarrhea towards the end of COVID. Some people present with diarrhea initially. I think SARS-CoV-2 plants itself anywhere. We've certainly seen the cases of cholecystitis where, it was COVID, or appendicitis. A lot of times you hear these kids that have a high fever and you think, and they're COVID positive and you focus just on COVID, but actually, some of them have appendicitis. So I think because, again, that's where the ACE2 receptors, that's where the virus accumulated, and that's where the inflammation and infection occurred. So I think, and then of course, in the liver, we're seeing elevated liver function tests from not as much, so it's interesting because I'm one of those people that treats because I am doing the clinical trials with the FDA, and we do monitor their liver enzymes, part of the clinical trials. So we do see elevated liver function tests at the baseline. And then it's interesting when you give treatment, you start seeing the liver enzymes dropping. So you're seeing something changing. I think it's important to notice everything and to notice that GI is a huge part of COVID. And I think we're going to probably find out that COVID is a GI problem. And who knows, maybe it's a GI problem, as I was putting a hypothesis, maybe it's a GI problem first, maybe. I mean, we don't know. We'll find out. But I think the real study in that is really doing a cross-sectional study of the population and seeing how much of that population has SARS-CoV-2 in their stools. You will be surprised. I mean, I had a kid with Tourette's-like syndrome, who was a fascinating case at the beginning of the pandemic. Her parents had COVID in March 2020. The kid didn't have any upper respiratory symptoms. 3 months later, full-on PANS. And so we started looking, she went to different neurologists and everything. I was convinced it was COVID and the SARS-CoV-2 in the stools. It took me 6 months to analyze her stools and validate, verify, make sure that I was right on what I was seeing. And sure enough, it was COVID. We treated her and the kid is resolved from Tourette's. Now, here's the interesting thing, and this is what has been a little bit of a challenge right now, is I've tried to publish this case now for 3 months. It's been rejected by 3 journals. A case of Tourette's syndrome that is cured. So, we need to look at these cases. We need to pay attention to the gut.
That is a great line to end on. We need to pay attention to the gut. I mean, just so many incredible examples of just why it's so important to keep your tummy happy and healthy. And yes, I said tummy. I don't care. That's what I call it. I have a 3-year-old. That's how I talk now. Everyone deal with it, okay? But we've been talking with Dr. Sabine Hazan, talking about just, as always, just all these things that connect to the gut and your microbiome. And also, Doc Mock, we might have to put Bifidobacteria up on that list with OMG omega-3. Because it sounds like Bifidobacteria is the little hero in our tummies, fighting the good fight, and we don't even know.
Yep.
But we do have to take a quick break, so we'll be right back.
What's going on, Maximal Beings? It's Doc Mock here. Many of you are returning to the gym now, but some are not going back. Regardless of what you plan, Rogue has got the right gear to fit your needs. I personally own a barbell set and love it. The Black Ops shorts are sweat resistant and flexible for getting deep in your squats. Head on over to maximalbeing.com/rogue for our referral link. Order 3 items and they ship for free. And as usual, it's Doc Mock, and I'm here to maximize your pathway to wellness. If you're stuck at home and cannot make it to the grocery store, delivery may be the best way to stay clean and healthy. Instacart is the national leader in the direct-to-home delivery service. With numerous major chains and food from smaller stores, you can get those local veggies sent directly to your doorstep. Head on over to maximalbeing.com/Instacart and maximize your nutrition today.
Hello, Maximal Beings. It is I, Jacky P, your layman, and I'm here speaking with Dr. Sabine Hazan, along with my favorite co-hostess with the mostest, Doc Mock. Now, one thing you did say, Doc Mock, which was interesting, I don't remember what the official doctor word was, but essentially the poop bank that we're talking about. If you donated your stool to this poop bank, we will have an increase in the greatest microbiome that people have to see. And also, everyone will surprisingly get humongous calf muscles. You can definitely track it. The science is there. I did it right here on a napkin real quick. So, Dr. Hazan, we do have some questions for you. Some, some I might come up with, sometimes they come to me. So we'll start with the easy ones. I have a feeling what you're going to say, but what is your favorite health book and why?
My favorite health book, well, probably mine that I wrote, Let's Talk just because it has everything in there, some little recipes, etc. But before I answer the other question on health book, now that I know that Doc Mock has the best microbiome, you know what I'm going to be asking you?
I'm putting it on record.
No, I want to look at it. I think you need to send me your poop so I can look at it, because guess what? I have a biome bank. Let's store that poop.
You got it. It's legendary.
It's probably legendary. It's probably, will survive COVID. It could cure COVID, for God's
and
sake.
calf atrophy, You saw
the study from Poland, right? You saw the studies from Poland, right? Where fecal transplant in 2 C. diff patients were cured COVID with fecal transplant.
So cool.
Wow.
So cool.
I'm saying, I'm putting it right now, putting it on record. Doc Mock has, in school when there was that one kid that ruined the curve for everybody, that is Doc Mock's microbiome. He might just blow out the metrics more. Like, wow. I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there.
I'm so excited. I could say Doc Mock's microbiome.
That is like the biggest compliment you can give a GI person, by the way.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Well, most GI doctors probably have good microbiome. They're playing with microbes. They're playing with poop all day long, so they're probably breathing in a lot of these microbes.
Oh, that's true. You never think about that. All right. So other than your own book, before you wrote about talking before that book, if that was in a vacuum, what's another book that really?
I think I'm more about academic books, and I'm more about the journals. So I between reading all these journals and all the data on microbiome and everything, it's really hard to even sit down and read a health book per se. I think I'm more about the discovery and seeing what's already been published and validating what's out there. So, I'm a big supporter of all the academic journals and a big supporter of all the, the recent, medical books. Anaerobic Infections by Dr. Sidney Feingold is probably one of my best books, mainly because, it allows me to look back at the infections and how their thought process was at the time of thinking that one bacteria, one antibiotic, and how far we've come to realize that it's not one bacteria, one antibiotic, but actually that antibiotic kills other bacteria, and therefore we need to replenish what we've lost. So, medicine is evolving, research is evolving. I think there's gonna be a time where we're gonna start not looking at a disease like asthma or strep pneumonia, for example, as one bug, one disease, one infection, given antibiotics. I think we're gonna start looking at asthma as a relative abundance of various bugs, and it's all about recreating the balance. And I think GI is gonna have a huge role for that. So that's my goal, right? My goal is to kind of show the path of different, right now we've all been going this path with following infectious disease, but maybe GI is supposed to bring infectious disease to us to say, hey, let's help pulmonary, let's help neurology. I'm working with Dr. Sheldon Jordan. We're doing some clinical trials on fecal transplant and Alzheimer's, MS, Parkinson's, because we believe that there's a role for the gut and a role for the fixing of the brain, right? And then the stem cells and the exosomes and all that. So I think it's a combination, and that's where the different fields should come together. What we've seen from C. diff is no longer an infectious disease problem. It's really a GI problem, right? And I think Dr. Mark will agree, we're the ones that are fixing C. diff, right? Yep. So because it used to be vancomycin, flagyl, the fidaxomicin, and then guess what? Fecal transplant came along, and that was like a 99% cure.
For sure.
So, and the same thing with H. pylori. H. pylori became a GI problem, not even though it started off as a bug. So I think the whole field of infectious disease is going to have to start using GI in the future, in my opinion, because it's just not that simple of one bug, one antibiotic, and we have to pay attention to that. So that's my excitement about this, is that I'm seeing a new technology that is educating me on these microbes, and that is allowing me to see the diversity and to understand it. When I see mycoplasma in the gut, in the microbiome of a patient that had abdominal pain, and you can't even culture mycoplasma because it doesn't have a cell wall. And I see it on genetic sequencing where the patient has 40% over, of his microbiome is mycoplasma. I have to pay attention.
Paleo, keto, vegan, and carnivore. Maybe you've tried them all, but did you have success? Are you still doing that diet? Turns out there's not just one diet right for one particular person. By understanding how your body works and the relationship behind your body's workings and these diets, you can then approach the perfect plan for you. In the Perfect Human Diet course, we talk to you about your body's inner workings and the pros and cons of each plan. We discuss how our ancestors ate and have eaten, and lay a framework to tailoring a plan that is perfect for you. To learn more about the Perfect Human Diet course, head to maximalbeing.com/courses to find out more. And as always, I'm Doc Mock, and I'm here to maximize your health. You cannot supplement your way to health, but there are things that we need to add to our lives that can maximize our pathway to wellness. The American diet is virtually devoid of omega-3 fatty acids, which play a major role in cardiovascular disease, gut permeability, and mental health. Personally, I take omega-3s every night, and iHerb is the best place for clean, natural sources of supplements. I love the ZenWise omega-3 fatty acid supplement, which is free of fish burps and good for the environment. Head on over to maximalbeing.com/iHerb, that's IHERB, and enter the code B as in boy, D as in dog, B as in boy 5528 and receive 10% off your orders for all supplements. Maximize your supplements with iHerb.
Well, back to the balance, and I agree wholeheartedly as being a professional hospital patient with my issues. I think there's always needs to be a balance, right, when it comes to treating a patient, right? You have to treat the patient, right, and not the disease, and come look at the ailment with all angles. So I couldn't agree with you more. Next question, Dr. Hazan, and maybe you might have a good one with the nature of work you do, but maybe not, but we'll see. What is the craziest diet that you have either been on or heard of?
Okay, well, the craziest diet is something my sisters did this weekend, where they went to a spa for 3 days and were given just liquids. And I'm like, wow, that's a great, so it's like literally you pay for a spa and all you're getting is liquids. And so to me, that's crazy a little bit, because, once you replenish the foods, that's not sustainable, right? To just be on liquids for 3 days. So that, to me, that's probably a crazy diet. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It definitely probably gives you a head start on weight loss. But I've tried all the diets. I mean, I've tried the ketogenic, I've tried the, all the diets.
Okay. I mean, I hope
diets for like improving health, or diet to try to lose weight.
Either or. I mean, folks try, diets for a myriad of reasons. So, we've collected a few good, interesting, crazy diet stories on here. So, I always ask, because especially with what you do and in your circles, you probably hear folks say, oh yeah, There
is a diet that was crazy. So I used to be the medical director of an hospital where anorexics would check in, right? Mm-hmm. And I had a patient that was on Jell-O and Cool Whip for a whole entire year. That was like her only diet. Wow. And what was shocking to me is that her blood work, you would think her sodium, her potassium, everything would be out of whack, was completely normal. So that was a crazy diet. So don't do that at home, because that's really not recommended. And that's why she ended up in the eating disorder hospital. Okay. But that was a crazy diet.
Jell-O or Cool Whip?
Just Jell-O and Cool Whip for a whole entire year.
Wow. I'd love to hear the reasoning. Like, yes, the Cool Whip is your dairy, so you can get your vitamin C, your vitamins and your vitamin D there, right? And the Cool Whip is, the Jell-O is just for, it's we say eat the rainbow.
Collagen proteins. I don't know.
We say eat the rainbow, so you have just different colors of Jell-O.
Man, her micronutrient profile. Ooh, boy.
Yeah.
Thanks. Poor girl.
Too bad I didn't have a genetic sequencing lab back then. But yeah, no, it's sad. But even these girls, by the way, have that have eating disorders. Fecal transplant, there might be hope for them in the future.
Yeah, well, listen, I am happy. I didn't plan for this to happen, but I'm very happy that we brought up fecal transplants again, because I just feel like it's just something that people don't know about. I mentioned before that it was a South Park episode. I said, oh, that's a crazy idea. I don't think that's a thing, but it's been a thing. And you've been having great successes in it. Doc Mock has had great successes in it. And, folks, if you've been hearing anything, take care of your tum-tum, all right? Take care of that Bifidobacteria, right?
Yeah, so you can avoid having to have a fecal transplant. That's far down the road. I mean, that's to me, like if you're having C. diff, if you have ALS, you want to consider that. Alzheimer's, you want to consider that. But, definitely take care of what you're putting in your body. Yeah. And I think one of the big thing also is, people need to be cautious of what they're putting in their bodies. Not to just, you've seen the studies with probiotics talking about bifidobacteria. So we recently published a paper where we looked at bifidobacteria and in probiotics and found that 16 out of the 17 over-the-counter probiotics didn't have bifidobacteria in them. So you got to be careful of what you're taking in. That's why, this is why products go through FDA and all that. There's a huge marketing of probiotics out there that is possibly killing your own microbiome. How many kids have I seen that come in with zero bifidobacteria, and then I find out that they were taking probiotics? And to me, it's crazy, because why are you taking meds if you're healthy? Why are you taking a probiotic if your body is making bifidobacteria? That's your whole body is a compost farm. Don't mess that up. Yeah. So if you're healthy, do nothing, continue doing what you're doing. That's my message, really. I mean, my kid doesn't have the best diet in the world, but you know what? Her bifidobacteria is good. So it's, continue what I'm saying to her, continue. Who am I to criticize her diet? She has a better microbiome than me, right?
Be kind to your bifidobacterium, for sure.
And the other thing people don't realize is bifidobacteria is really sensitive to things like, a lot of alcohol, a lot of coffee, a lot of drugs, a lot of antibiotics, a lot of beef with antibiotics, a lot of stress. When people are so stressed that they lost a spouse or a family member, and then all your gut is all out of whack, you're probably killing your bifidobacteria at that point. Who knows? But I think it's all about that. It's not just a pill, it's the whole balance, right? Dr. Mark, you probably keep yourself even keel, right? Laughing, happy, because that's what, keeps it going.
It's all about sustainability, and it's all about balance. For those of you listening out there, we do recommend, despite the fact that myself and Dr. Hazan are board certified licensed gastroenterologists, that you do consult with your licensed healthcare professional prior to enacting any of the things that we discussed here today. And if any of you are looking to learn more about your gut microbiome, here we are at maximalbeing.com. You can download our free course or our free training that we're offering. And our kombucha course has actually been selling like hotcakes recently. I think a lot of you out there are kind of wondering what to do now that it's the new year. Dr. Hazan, where can people find you?
ProgenaBiome.com. They can pick up the book on Amazon. Let's Talk Shh. And, that's pretty much it.
Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, leave us a comment. And if you have any questions, you can email us at team@maximalbeing.com. To you, Jacky P.
I wanted to say one last thing. If anyone works at one of these banks and wants to talk to us about how they find and catalog and all this stuff and want to get deeper into this, please reach out to us. If anyone out there listening, out in the interwebs. That's it. Take it away, Doc Mock.
As always, I'm Doc Mock, and I'm here with Dr. Hazan, and I'm here with my best friend, Jacky P, and we are here to maximize your health. See you later.
What's going on, Maximal Beings? Doc Mock here. If you haven't done so already, leave us a comment and hit the subscribe button. Let your friends and family know. That way we can get the word out and continue to bash the bro science.